audience, and thanks mainly to the panelists. I have in my right side Sol Ruiz. Sol is the head of Biologic and Advanced Therapies in the Spanish Medicine Agency and very active also in the European Medicine Agency, of course. Joana Silveira is a senior partner of Cuatrecasas with a strong expertise in supporting on the biotechs and biotechnological as well in advanced therapies. And by the other side, we have Lluís Pareras, that is the founder and the manager partner of Invivo Capital, Venture Capital, and Matias Olsen from EUCOP, from the Confederation of Pharmaceutical Entrepreneurs, that is also having a strong support, trying to guarantee the access of the patients to these therapies. Okay, and just to start and to make the discussion very focused in what we are talking about, we would like to start showing which will be the tendencies on this sector. When we talk about advanced therapies, we talk about cell therapy, gene therapy, and tissue engineering. But maybe, Lluís, you can start sharing with us from the perspective of the investors, which do you think that are the tendencies in the sector, or what's happening and what's moving on this area? Please, Lluís.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Thank you for your kind introduction. And indeed, what a privilege to share this roundtable with such talented colleagues. I will start by, let me just, to set the tone, say what a privilege it is as well to work investing in advanced therapies. This is a space with such a fast pace, I mean, a remarkable speed of progress, remarkable scientists and individuals working here. I'm surrounded all the time by them, and it feels really like a privilege. As all technologies or fields that have a great delta on the patient, meaning that have such great outcomes, this space will follow 3 simple rules, just as a starter. First, they're very simple, but nevertheless, I want to focus on them because I think they are important. Rule number 1, demand will increase. We will treat more and more patients over time. Rule number 2, costs will go down. We will find ways of producing cheaper and cheaper. We will find ways of giving this faster and faster. And finally, of course, the rhythm of innovation. I mean, we will witness remarkable innovations, and it is that what I want to focus right now. I'm going to try to explain what we see. And by the way, probably is what we see is not exactly the same as the regulatory agencies see, like Sol, and I'm really looking forward to the debate because what we see is very early stage. We see crazy scientists with super innovative technologies. Sometimes they get to the clinic, some other times they fail, but we are trying to support them all, right? So I will separate between cell and gene therapies because I think the trends are a little bit different. In cell therapy, if I may start with that, trend number 1, I have my list here, not to forget any single one. Trend number 1 would be, we will go beyond, for example, in CAR-Ts, we'll go beyond the T cells, of course. We're seeing more cells now coming. Of course, we are already treating with NKs, gamma deltas, macrophages, monocytes, you name it. Almost every cell that can play a role in the immune system could be engineered, right? But what I see, what I think it's important, we will start seeing right now combinations of cells as well. Therapies that combine cells, we're starting to see things like that. Trend number 2 would be, for me, synthetic biology is coming to the field with such a violence. I mean, it's going to be so intertwined. And this begs the question, probably we will debate later. But for example, what do we do with IP? Many people own just a little piece of the action, right? Like biobricks, and nobody owns the whole thing. And it's getting increasingly difficult to have the freedom to operate that we need. Number 3, there will still be competition among the different modalities. For example, in CAR-Ts, I don't know, autologous versus allogeneic versus in vivo or iPSCs, whatever. But it is not really a competition, is it? I mean, because I think every discipline will have its place in the sense that could benefit specific groups of patients, right? But But we compete here, of course, in potency, persistence, efficacy, safety, patient journey, costs, etc. And investors, we need like to set like the puzzle just to see what will come next, right? And I wonder as well, and I'm dying to ask you Sol later on in the debate, what do you think, for example, about this black box issuing now to the class of CAR-Ts with the oncogenicity worries? We'll debate probably later, but I think it's going to be very interesting. We will see evolving indications. It all started with oncology, of course, hemato-oncology, more precisely. We will move, well, by the way, in hemato-oncology, the results are extraordinary. I mean, what we are seeing in patients, the benefit that we cause to patients is extraordinary. We will move, of course, to solid tumors. Careful here, because solid tumors are not that easy. I think we need to understand much better tumor microenvironment, and we need to understand many things in order for it to work. Many of you know, in my prior life, I used to be a neurosurgeon before jumping into the dark side of venture capital, right? And the first solid tumor, in my opinion, that will be tackled, I think it's glioblastoma, because precisely it is not that solid, you know? I mean, CAR-Ts find difficulty in entering, for example, tumors that are very, very solid, like pancreatic tumor, but not glioblastomas, which is like a fluid. I've operated myself hundreds of them, and I can tell you it is not a solid tumor. But these, from solid tumors, will move as well to autoimmune. We will move then to fibrotic diseases. We'll move to senescence, aging, infectious diseases, you name it. But further applications are coming, and this begs the question, of course, about the risk-benefit. It may be different in different modalities, and this will need, I mean, different modalities will probably have different safety requirements according to that. We'll see as well going from third-line treatments to second-line to first-line treatments. I think this will move over time there, and we will see fast improvements in the speed at which we can do, for example, the vein-to-vein in the modalities that need this vein-to-vein, right? We will see how it decreases speed really, really to be able to treat patients much, much faster, okay? And now, moving into the gene therapy space, another amazing space. As you know, we only invest in advanced therapies, so we try to keep track of all the trends. But here in gene therapy, of course, there's the issue. I mean, we're going to see movements from viral vectors to non-viral vectors, okay? Viral vectors, of course, I mean, to be really honest, I don't know what will happen with viral vectors, because I've changed my mind so many times across the years that, because we are science-driven, and of course we go where the science leads us, right? But I think they have had quite a few problems, several on-holds, Odentes trials, several deaths, DMD trials, several deaths as well. I think we're moving to LNPs and non-viral vectors, but then we have the problem of how to provide them with target-acquired specificity. Delivery is still an issue, and this is another trend. Delivery is still an issue, but scientists are working really hard to make it happen, and I think we will move from giving the gene therapy with an ubiquitous promoter, for example, to have promoters that are targeted to the organ, then promoters targeted to the cell, and we're going to increase specificity over time. That is important as well. Technology will evolve as well. It all started with gene therapy, then we moved to gene editing with CRISPRs, zinc fingers, etc. Now we're moving as well to gene writing, and then epigenome editing, RNA editing, RNA therapies. I mean, what I want to convey is this speed that this sector has that is so accelerating. Of course, we'll move as well another trend from the easier indications going to the liver, and we will go then to heart, CNS, renal, and then ultimately to the whole body with muscle, which is particularly difficult, right? But I think very interesting strategies are coming. And then we'll try to get rid of the cargo size limitation. We have a wonderful company in our portfolio, Integra, for example, that tries to solve the cargo size in order to be able to cure genetic diseases on a mutation-independent way, regardless of the mutation, right? I'm finishing just a couple more. Yeah, maybe this is not interesting. I mean, the field is so exciting, but this begs the question, and with that, I'm going to finish. And probably one of the speakers that could be more entitled to answer the question is precisely our moderator, because you are here moderating us, but I think this question, you are super expert in that. But this begs the question, are we ready, are we prepared to offer to society at scale these advanced therapies? Because they need production, they need many, many things. European level, Spain level, Catalan level, are we ready there yet to treat patients at scale? Meaning, because demand is going to go. What people don't understand is that technologies that at first are very expensive and they are used not very often, right? But this will change dramatically, and advanced therapies will become mainstream, and we need to be prepared with the right infrastructure. But I'm sure we can debate this later. Some of my points I will wait until the debate to offer them. But
Thank you, Lluís. I think that has been very exhaustive vision. So very, exciting, no? Because we have many options, many treatments, many opportunities. Focus on that. I answered to your question very briefly. I think that we are extremely ready. We can be more ready. Maybe we need better organization and better communication between the different stakeholders in that. I think that there are different initiatives from different ministries and from different initiatives even at Catalan level that are working on that. But I think that we are ready. At the moment, I can say that there is no treatment that cannot be reached because of this capacity and that. And probably we need to focus in preparing the full pathway, no, with all the barriers that we can work on. But I think that we are ready, and we are working to be even more ready. But I would like to place the voice to Sol in order to know if what Lluís was saying, it is at the same level when these options reach the table of the regulator for revision and that, if you are in the same stage on that.
Certainly. No, thank you. Thanks very much, Esteve. Thanks for inviting me to be here this morning, and thanks for the very nice introduction, Lluís. I cannot agree more. We are living exciting times. It's really fascinating to think about, all the new therapies that are coming. And well, I think we already have some advanced therapy medicinal products on the market. Patients are being treated. Some have been more successful than others. There are many challenges, as you have mentioned, for patients to have access to those available treatments, and that is something that we would need to work on. From a regulatory point of view, what we've been already saying for many, many years is if you're a scientist, if you're a company, if you're thinking or have already started developing an advanced therapy medicinal product, is come as early as possible to talk to the regulators. I think all over the European Union, a great effort has been made through the years to have this early contact and dialogue with research groups or companies in order to facilitate and speed up all the development process. So as you probably have heard, there is already for many years this initiative at the European Medicines Agency called PRIME, for Priority Medicines. And the idea is to have a very early and continuous dialogue with the developers of not only advanced therapies, for all medicinal products that are targeting an unmet medical need and have initial promising results. So, and through this sort of strategy, several advanced therapy medicinal products have already been authorized. And that is, continuous work in how we can improve that interaction is something that the agencies are working on. And at the Spanish level, also we have the Innovation Office. We're open to any meetings as considered necessary by researchers, companies. This is meetings that we take frequently as needed, and also our goal is to facilitate the development, to make all the studies as efficient as possible, to generate the data, to get to a marketing or to an authorization so patients can benefit from it. So we are always open to any kind of dialogue. Again, all these meetings are either face-to-face or virtual meetings, no fee, so they are for free, and we're looking forward, because also for us as agencies, I mean, it's very good to know what is coming and to have this kind of interaction. So again, agree with you, Lluís, on many products that are coming, and you know, we just got in December last year the first product, genetically modified cells using genome editing, CRISPR-Cas. So that's already.
I can tell you firsthand that they really help. So thank you.
Sorry?
I can tell the audience firsthand that you really help. Yes.
Okay.
I
We'll
think
be
that
happy to.
one interesting conclusion of what you are saying, Sol, as Lluís was saying, is that this is working in Spain quite well, and maybe encouraging everybody that is working at the research stages for some ideas and that to interact with the agency in the early stages, because it saves a lot of misunderstandings and also work that should be reworked, no? Because it's not fulfilling what is expected from the regulatory point of view. But just to go ahead, because we have some constraints of time, I don't know if Joana or Matias wants to add something on tendencies, otherwise we will go to the, what are the challenges that maybe, but feel free if you want to say something, or, okay? And then, Matias, you are working strongly just to guarantee the access of the patients, providing a lot of support to a lot of companies as director of policy officers and code and that. Which do you think that are the new challenges or the main barriers? No, we start talking about barriers. Which are the main problems that you need to solve to guarantee this access of the patients to the treatment?
Thank you very much, Esteve. And I just need to check my time first before I go into the barriers, so I don't eat up all of it. No, I think currently, as everyone is aware, there are a lot of revisions happening now in Brussels. A lot of new ideas for legislation coming out of the European Commission, and as Lluís, you beautifully laid out what the future will look like. We need that legislative framework at the European level to deliver on that, to make sure that patients in the end can benefit from these therapies. So I'll try to speak to just a few things that we see. So one is the revision of the general pharmaceutical legislation. It's the largest revision in now 20, 30 years or something almost. It hasn't been looked at for a long time. And here we do have an opportunity now to clarify some things, for example, with regards to how do hospital exemptions work, and what we need to really make sure that we don't do here is make sure that we don't have dual pathways. So we support companies going through the regulatory pathway for approval with the European Medicines Agency, and that we of course make sure that we uphold the strong quality and safety features of that pathways, but at the same time make sure that in the cases where there is no therapy, no ATMP that has received a marketing authorization on the market, or that cannot meet the needs of an individual patient, in that case, a hospital exemption, of course, should be available to produce an alternative for that patient in the hospital setting. So I think that's really important, but what's needed here is to provide that clarity, to send the right clarity to everyone, including the investors as well, that are investing in these products, make sure that these products will reach the right patients and that there is an adequate return for developing those therapies. If not, we will not be able to draw benefit from all of this important research that is happening. So I think that's one very important feature of the revision of the legislation.
I interrupt you because I think that our two other panelists are also experts on hospital exemption, and I think that maybe it's more useful to finish the topic of hospital exemption before going to the next one.
I can even take a step back. and provide just a brief explanation on the legal challenges that we face on these therapies, and one of them is exactly the hospital exemption. But when developers and companies that want to place or to provide advanced therapies in the market, we need to think of a lot of legislations across European level, and then, of course, going back to national level. The first one I would raise is the regulation, the European regulation on advanced therapies, where we have a centralized procedure for a medicinal product that will receive an authorization by the EMA. So it's a similar, I would say, from a conceptual perspective to other medicinal products. And then we have the hospital exemption also foreseen in this regulation. It is foreseen here, but in fact is to be implemented at local level, and I think that's where most of, well, not most, but some issues arise. This is a procedure in the non-routine basis, to be applied on a non-routine basis under a healthcare professional responsibility and for an individual patient. This is very briefly. So in order to apply this therapy, we don't need to have a centralized authorization. We don't need a marketing authorization. That doesn't mean, of course, and thinking about the patients, that on a country level, authorities need to be worried about the safety of the patient and all the quality and traceability of these therapies. But the truth is that I think that is not happening in an harmonized way all over Europe. So we have countries, and I think Spain is a very good example of that, where these safety and quality issues are in fact taken into account. But we have other countries where we don't need to have good manufacturing practice at the hospital level. We don't have any clinical evidence in foregoing of the therapy. So there is a lack of transparency, which I think this is something that the new EU package wants to bring in member states, at least communicating and having a centralized information of what is happening across UE member states, so that we don't have, thinking about the patients, of course, on the first hand, different situations, but also from an industry perspective, it also brings some different stages here. So this is the regulation that we need to think of first when speaking about advanced therapies, but we also very briefly need to look at others, like Tissues and Cells Directive. So in most cases, we are using cells and tissues from patients or donors, and we need to make sure that the traceability requirements, licensing requirements, safety requirements. We have also to think of the blood director whenever blood is a starting material in these products. We then also have the genetically modified organisms that are usually in the retroviral vaccines and medicines. And this is also something that we hope will bring some clarity with the new package legislation in order to have a centralized procedure, especially in clinical trials. We also need to think about the manufacturing procedures of the advanced cell therapies. We need to comply with GMP. We have decentralized manufacturing in these specific types of medicine. So that's something that,
Let me interrupt you, and then we can continue with other legislative challenges. And just to close the topic of hospital exemption, as I think that the four of us are very involved in the discussions with the Parliament and with the Commission on that, but the Spanish model is taken as a model, no, on that. What do you think, Sol, about which will be the success or not in this harmonization of hospital exemption? And I think that Joana and Matias explained quite well the topic, but if you want to reinforce some ideas.
Yeah, no, very briefly, thank you. I fully agree with you. I mean, probably we need more transparency, we need additional information, but also it's like, I think hospital exemption, if I remember correctly, there are many countries in the EU who have not even implemented hospital exemption. So it's only very few countries, and it's true that there is no harmonization, between those countries. And as you mentioned, I think it is critical, and that's the model that Spain took. That is, GMP are necessary, even if it's a hospital. follow up efficacy and safety. And the model that we established, it was to, you have authorization to use the product, but we review every year the data, patients treated, and then after 3 years, we reconsider that use authorization. So I think that is obviously a very good model. We don't know what the final view of the European Commission will be on this. I mean, I've heard that in some cases it's like, oh, well, that one possibility would be that hospital exemption would not be sort of allowed when an equivalent of product for the same indication is authorized. Personally, I think that would be a mistake because marketing authorization, as we know, even for biotechnological products, doesn't mean access. So there are many countries and patients in the EU who do not get access even to biotech products. So I think let's consider case by case and let's not establish, a very tight rules in advance. Let's see what happens. And it's something that we can reconsider, after 5 or 10 years of, the exercise.
Thank you. So I think one of the challenges with sort of making a hospital exemption product equal to that has gone through the pathway for central approval is that, well, there's a lot of research, the whole mechanism behind there that has gone to developing that product and taking it through the EMA process, and now it would be creating a dual system where the EMA, which is really meant to be the safeguard for safety and efficacy in Europe for these types of products, is no longer always holding that role. So that should be fine, but that product should also then have a centralized, there is a pathway for centralized approval that product could go through if it's then meant to serve such a high number of patients. So there is already a pathway. Let's not undermine that pathway in any ways. And, when we talk about access, you're very right. It is very complicated. And even if there is not a product there, just by allowing patients to go into clinical trials, for example, for an ATMP that is still under development, that is still access for those patients. So even if there isn't an authorized product, so we need to make sure that we strengthen that pathway so that patients across Europe can have access and not undermine it.
Yeah, and just to complement on that, I wanted to remind us all how important hospital exemption has been to foster innovation. In our hospitals, we have several companies in this space. Giala from Hospital Clinic. Hospital Clinic has been leading this space since a lot of time ago, and they are incredible. And they did what they did because they had as a tool the hospital exemption. It is true it will evolve, but let's be mindful of how we change it because it could it could prevent the rhythm of innovation that this space had. And of course, it is a bit messy because every country has its own rules, and that adds to the confusion, right? And to the messiness. But careful, don't change that too much because I think we need it in order to improve innovation.
I think that we can do an entire session
Yes.
about hospital exemption, but we need to change the topic,
just
otherwise.
need to defend our part here.
Matias, I give your voice back to continue with the challenges. We stop in the first one.
Thank you very much, Esteve. I'll try to be brief. I think the next challenge that we see with a revision of the general pharmaceutical legislation is this idea to reduce the incentives that companies receive for exactly conducting these trials and taking them to their centralized pathway for approval, and then giving them back if the product is launched in all 27 member states within a given time frame. Now, there are several challenges there for many reasons. One of them, I represent small to mid-sized companies, and if you look at a smaller company, for example, they don't always have the same resources in terms of bringing that product to the market. It's very challenging to go to 27 different member states and provide the data that they need on the patient populations that they are interested in, because every healthcare system is different and it is a member state's competence. So solving that at the EU level is not necessarily the right approach by going with these conditional incentives. For ATMPs, it becomes even more difficult because you don't necessarily have those patient populations everywhere, or you don't have centers for administering the therapies. So I think that needs some rethinking. If any of the panelists wants to come in on that. If not, happy to move on to the next. I think this is both a challenge and an opportunity. We see it as an opportunity. That is the new EU HTA procedure.
Okay, I wanted Joana and Matias to share with the audience something related with the intellectual protection, the patents, as well as the cost and the difficulties for reimbursement, or the potential difficulties of for these therapies on the health systems, and that related with the cost. That also Lluís introduced the topic of first lines instead of third lines, of decreasing the cost, or maybe Joana, and then we can...
And still in this topic that Matias was on the regulatory data protection, which is very important for all developers and for all pharmaceutical companies, but very in particular to advanced therapies. Because apart from the patient protection that goes back to the discovery of the therapy of something very early stage, we have this period, the regulatory data protection, that right now is still granted 8 years plus 2 and 1, which is the period in which generics and biosimilars cannot access them, cannot ask for a marketing authorization. So during that period, the developers, the companies have the right to market exclusivity their product. And this is we'll say now, this is an 8-year granted, so companies can rely and can define strategies, business decisions on developing strategies for the commercialization based on this 8, which will be up to 11 years. And one hot topic that is under discussion with the new pharmaceutical package is the reduction of this period to 6 years, based on the ways to improve access, to better improve access to patients. But my point, or I think one very discussable topic here, is that this is a granted. We can count on, developers can count with 6 years on the data protection, but in order to have additional 2, they will need to make the product available in the 27 member states, which it is very difficult. And I think one of the difficulties is exactly when we discuss at the national level the pricing and reimbursement procedures. And so I think this also has a very direct impact and will have in advanced therapies, because this new medicines is not the healthcare system on health technologies are not thought to these types of medicines. This is a one cure and could have a great impact in the patients, in the caregivers, in the society as a whole, but has a very high upfront price. So we will probably need to change culturally the way we assess investment in order to be able to have a 2 years availability in all the member states. So that's why I think this balance needs to be better evaluated, how we're going to end up.
But Joana, I think that with the table we place to the audience that probably are less familiar with the topic, one of the strong discussions, we have a product that is not like the rest of pharmaceutical products, like a chemical molecule, for instance, that is even having some logistics problems, as Lluís mentioned at the beginning. And we have the proposal for reduction of the protection for 6 years, unless you make the product accessible. And Sol was saying that having a product authorized by centralized authorization doesn't mean access to the patients. No? And I think that that's one of the hot topics with advanced therapies and the new pharmaceutical regulation, because someone decide that advanced therapies are in the pharmaceutical frame, and then it's what we are. So maybe...
No, I agree, and that is something that we need to balance. But this discussion is reminding me about another discussion that we had many years ago when biosimilars came to the market, and the first biosimilars. I remember hearing many companies saying, this is a disaster, this is going to be the end of innovation, there will be no products because of the competition. And we have seen actually the opposite, more innovation, and more accessibility to patients to very good treatments, early access, like biological treatments that were used before in second, third line, now are becoming the first option because we have more products and the price is cheaper. So in the end, patients win, healthcare systems win, and I think the innovation is still there. So I agree with the concerns, but we have to balance both.
Yeah, if I may, I share Sol's opinion as well. I think when I hear about the balance, I always think about this concept, this invisible hand that puts things into place, right? It was Adam Smith in the 18th century that said, look, even if we don't regulate, costs will increasingly go down. It is true that they are very expensive at the moment, but costs will go down. The super ultra leading edge will still go up, but then it balances itself, you know. And I'm very optimistic on how these technologies will unfold into society.
Matias, from the point of view of your confederation, what we can do in order to allow that the products that are really authorized by the European Medicine Agency will be accessible in all Europe and some pricing will be provided, no? Because we know, even in Spain, that we have a list of products that has been approved by centralized authorization that are not available, no? Because the system don't provide a price, or the health system in the analysis of efficiency, cost benefit, they don't consider that to be inside. We can do something, because I understand that your confederation is working strongly on that.
No, absolutely. I think there are solutions, and first I have to agree. Just because there's marketing authorization doesn't mean it's necessarily available. If there is a product available, then that product should of course be prescribed to the patient. No, there are absolutely ways to manage this. We have seen this already, that some member states have started implementing so-called outcome-based models or pay-for-performance models for these types of products. So, of course, if you have a large price tag on a product and you have a claim about what value it is going to bring to the patient and to the healthcare systems,
but
then
careful here, because they super perform these therapies. I mean, I am a strong believer precisely in paying for success, but in this space precisely, in hemato-oncology, at least, for example, using CAR-Ts, I mean, it is super, the outcome on patients is typically very good.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely, and well, personally, I believe that's something that we should reward, and that's something that we should pay for, because that is really driving our healthcare systems to becoming, delivering better outcomes for patients. That's what I see as an investment. No, absolutely, and I think you alluded to it. So when we think about these pay-for-performance models, it needs to be agreed up front. You know, what are you going to reward? So it needs to be agreed up front. But there should also be an element there of data collection as well to, you know, bridge any evidence gaps that might have been there at the time of marketing authorization. Because, as you said, if it's a one-off treatment, for example, then you need to better understand how that impacts healthcare spending, which would have typically been spent on a chronic caring for a chronic disease, for example.
Joana, do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, I think this will be one of the major challenge, the effective access to patient, and that's also something Matias was mentioning. That one thing is to have a marketing authorization on a centralized procedure where the agencies will most look at the effectiveness and the safety and the quality of the product, and then what we now need to think is in models to the patient's effective access the product, and there's a pricing issue, of course, and this is something that all the players need to think of, and in the long term, because I think one of the major changes here in comparison to the traditional medicinal products is the long-term effect. So if you have a cure, you will have long-term savings in productivity, in healthcare systems. So I think the system needs to think differently, and we all the players need to think on a different perspective.
Absolutely. We are very late, but maybe I would like the four of you to send to the audience the last key message to take home in this area. What do you think that we need to focus? What's the people that are here, entrepreneurs, hospitals, scientific biotechs?
Yeah. No, again, I think we live in exciting times from a research point of view, from a healthcare point of view, and again, from the agencies, we are always open and willing to establish a dialogue as soon as possible with researchers, so companies, to try to speed up the development and make it more efficient so we can all as benefit from it, because in the end, one day or another, we will be patients.
Great. Joana.
Yes, I think it's more than obvious that we faced with advanced therapies, regulatory, R&D, manufacturing issues. So I think it's very important for all players to come together, medical institutions, manufacturers, industry, authorities, in order to make the access possible to patients.
Great. Lluís, please.
Well, my last words would be for the scientists. I mean, I encourage them to keep being bold and moving forward. We have extraordinary clinical needs to solve yet, and I think these new tools provide us with an immense opportunity to solve diseases that are very, very challenging. I encourage scientists to use synthetic biology, logic gates, new cell functionalities, if then else as well. I mean, we're going to see very, very good outcomes in the near future. I share the vision of all the panel that these are really exciting times.
Great. And Matias, last but not least.
Well, I think we need a predictable legal framework for sure. We need to see healthcare spending as not a cost, but as an investment, which was very clear during the pandemic, and now we're forgetting it a little bit. And finally, I hope that we can support those early dialogues, which Sol mentioned, and especially now with this new EU HTA procedure, where some of this, the HTA assessment will be done jointly at the EU level. We know there will be limited slots for having those conversations. We need to properly resource that so all developers will have the chance to have those discussions early.
Okay. Thank you to all panelists for these really interesting discussions, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
thanks to the audience for the attention.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.